In following up on the Attorney General's words about speaking up for our principles and raising our voices, and as Peter Rubin mentioned earlier, our special responsibility as ACS, I am now, with great pleasure, going to introduce a longtime supporter and leader of ACS and a current member of the ACS board. Don Johnsen is a talented and distinguished scholar, as you all know. She's a professor at Indiana University's Moore School of Law, and she is at the forefront in shaping thought on some of the key legal issues of our time, from bringing a much-needed light and understanding to the proper parameters of presidential power, to the protection of reproductive rights. Don also brings a rich legal experience that includes service in various key positions in the Clinton administration, including acting Assistant Attorney General and counsel to the President. But perhaps most importantly, Don serves as an inspiration to progressive law students and lawyers, and certainly to me personally, to stand by and fight for your principles. For those of you who were here last year, you will recall her inspirational remarks. And Don, I hope you don't mind if I quote you, but it's so good, it has to be said again. And Don said, "One should not live one's life deciding whether or how to write such briefs based on crass political judgments about possible future payoffs. You should stand on principle and speak out, because that is simply the right thing to do. It is the deep and best tradition of lawyers and others fighting for the rule of law and the rights of those without political power. It is the foundation of ACS, and it is also the patriotic thing to do, the way for our great nation to achieve its potential." So tonight, Don, who will be equally eloquent, I believe, I am sure, Don is here to present the winners of the Richard D. Cudahy writing competition on regulatory and administrative law. So please join me in welcoming Don.
Good evening. It's my privilege tonight to introduce Judge Richard Cudahy, who will actually announce the winners tonight. Judge Cudahy has served on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit for more than 30 years, since 1979. He attended West Point and Yale Law School, and before joining the bench, he had an impressive and diverse array of positions: U.S. Air Force officer, private attorney, law professor, CEO of a corporation, chair of a state political party, candidate for political office, chairman of a state regulatory commission. It was also my great privilege to have served as Judge Cudahy's law clerk 25 years ago, and to count him today as a mentor and a great friend. Judge Cudahy is an inspiration as a model public servant and a judge. He is brilliant, hardworking, dedicated to the rule of law and getting the right result. He's tireless in promoting and pursuing justice. He's empathetic to all of those who are affected by his rulings. And yes, empathy is a positive attribute. Throughout Judge Cudahy's distinguished and demanding career, he's also been a model in his devotion to his family, to his children, his grandchildren, his wife Janet. His example and his generosity has helped scores of us who have had the great fortune of knowing him to become better professionals and better people. So we're very fortunate to have Judge Cudahy with us tonight to announce the winners of the award that is named in his honor. The Richard D. Cudahy Writing Competition recognizes legal voices in regulatory and administrative law, which has long been a special expertise of his. So please help me in welcoming Judge Richard Cudahy.
Well, thank you so much, Dawn, for your very kind remarks. You know, Dawn is the real creator of this writing competition. It was her concept and her vigorous efforts that pulled it all together with all my law clerks over the years. It's their project, and she was their leader. Dawn, as you know, is just a fabulous person, a jewel both in head and heart. And I truly love her and her husband, John, who also was in my chambers with her. And you see what happened. So, as you all know, she should be occupying at this moment a key role in the Justice Department, but instead was hung out to dry in a disgraceful exhibition of partisan rancor. That was a tragic loss of fabulous talent, I think, by our country. And we are apparently facing some of the same kind of problem with my daughter-in-law, Victoria Nurse, who is a prodigious legal scholar who's been nominated by the president as a judge on our court. She faces no objection of substance, but has become entangled in some sort of ambush of newly discovered Senate rules and even denied a hearing. And of course, the somewhat pathetic efforts of the administration to untangle her do not look any more promising than most of its efforts on appointments these days. The way we're going, it looks to me as if most of the judicial work is going to be done by 80 and 90-year-olds like me, who are not obviously afflicted with Alzheimer's, since they will be the only ones left to do anything. I don't think it's any coincidence that the most appreciated presentation at our recent circuit conference was a lecture by a doctor on Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. He provided us with useful information about a subject that really concerns us, and ought to. Well, I better get back to the important purpose of these remarks, which is to announce the award and present them to the winners of this very successful writing competition, due to the efforts of Dawn and the ACS. I particularly appreciate the work of the judges, Judge David Hamilton, Professor Lisa Heinzlinger of Georgetown, Jeff Caney of Hill and Caney, who is also a law clerk of mine, Professor Gillian Metzger of Columbia, Professor Eduardo Penalver of Cornell, and Director Allison Ziev of the Public Citizens Litigation Group. Without those people doing the judging, we wouldn't have a competition. Well, we've called this the Richard D. Cudahy Writing Competition. Incidentally, people wonder how to pronounce my name. In Wisconsin, it's pronounced Cudahy, and Illinois and elsewhere, it's pronounced Cudahy. I don't know what all the reasons for that are, but that's the way it is. It's a writing competition of regulatory and administrative law, and the first one of these awards is the law student category. We have two categories, law students and lawyers. And this award goes to Gabriel A. Cohen, who's sitting right down here. Come on up. He's a graduate of the Harvard Law School and the University of Wisconsin, where he was Phi Beta Kappa, and also a member of the wrestling team and a wrestling coach. So his muscles are as big as his brain. He is currently the clerk for Amalia Kurz of the Second Circuit, and he's going to clerk next year from Jack Weinstein of the Eastern District of New York. And I particularly appreciate that because I was a clerk on the Second Circuit when I got out of law school. So congratulations. The topic of his writing was the OIRA avoidance, which is a very interesting subject. That's how you keep out of the tangle of OIRA, which manages the federal regulatory process, as you know. It was deeply researched and I think brilliantly written. And it's a job of digging into what's actually going on with a crucial agency. So congratulations again. Thank you very much. And the lawyer category, and the recipient of this award is not with us, but I'll announce his name and credentials, is Eric Berger, who is an assistant professor at the University of Nebraska College of Law. He's a graduate of Columbia Law School and got his BA at Brown University, where he got honors in history. He clerked for Merrick B. Garland of the D.C. Circuit, and at one time he was an associate of Jenner and Block. And the title of his work was Individual Rights, Judicial Deference, and Administrative Law Norms in Constitutional Decision-Making. You can tell he's a professor with that title. All right. And he's, of course, the author of numerous scholarly publications. I don't say of course, but he is, in fact, the author of them and has done brilliant work over the years. And in closing, I'd just like to congratulate the organization here on its 10th anniversary. It's done a terrific job, and it's done a terrific job with this competition in particular. Thank you very much. I was going down this side, you go down there.
I'm Jeff Stone. I have the honor of serving as chair of the board of the American Constitution Society, and you'll be happy to know that my responsibility this evening is to set you free so you can go forth and do good. I guess one observation I have from tonight is ACS is so cool and important and central to our nation and our future and our law. When I walked in this evening, a member of the staff of ACS handed me a couple of pieces of paper and said essentially, this is what you do when you get up there. He said, unless you'd rather have the use of the teleprompter. And I said, wow, definitely the teleprompter. I've never had a chance to do that before. And he said, oh, wait, if you've never done it before, this is not a good time to start. Now, I'm a petulant sort of guy, so if I can't use the teleprompter, I'm not going to use the speech either. Basically, what I was instructed to do was to thank all of you who've made this evening and the convention possible, and I'm delighted to do that, and also to issue a plea to all of us to help support the ACS now and in the future. But instead of doing that, I want to tell you just a bit of a story because it'll be useful to virtually everybody in this room. And it has to do with fundraising. when I was first named dean of the University of Chicago Law School back in the spring of 1986, the then dean, Gerhard Casper, said to me one of the people I needed to meet right away was an elderly woman who was a widow of one of our alums who lived out in Beverly Hills, who had no children and a lot of money. And Gerhard said to me, the only problem with Ruth is that she's really high maintenance. And she won't commit to anything because she loves attention. So you better get on a plane and get out there and start being really nice to her. So I said, okay. So I called her up and I made a date and I flew out to Los Angeles and I had dinner with her. She's a very nice woman, very smart. And at the end of the dinner, she said to me, you know, Jeff, I have a good idea for you. So you're going to need to know how to raise money. And I have a friend, Milton Gordon. Milton is connected to Columbia University, and he was a good friend of Harry and me. And Milton's really good at this, and I think you should go to New York and have dinner with Milton, and he can probably give you some good advice. So I said, oh, Ruth, thank you. That's such a wonderful idea. And so I get back to Chicago, and I find out how to call Milton Gordon, and I call him up, and he was very nice, and he agreed to meet me in his club in New York. And I am on a plane 3 days later flying to New York, and I'm thinking, what the hell have I done to my life? Right? Here I was teaching and writing, and the next thing I know, I'm flying to New York to have lunch with an 85-year-old guy who has nothing to do with the University of Chicago, doesn't know me from Adam, all of which is designed to please some other 85-year-old person in Los Angeles. So I get to New York, and they meet Milton. Milton's a little guy, and we have lunch, and it's very pleasant. And at the end of the lunch, he said to me, so Ruth says you want some advice about fundraising. And I said, yeah, that's why I'm here. And he said, here's the thing. He said, whenever you ask people for money, you're likely to feel really uncomfortable because you're going to think to yourself, why should this person do anything for me? Why should this person want to give me any of his hard-earned money? He said, you got to get that out of your head. What you're doing is you're giving somebody an opportunity to do something that's going to make them really happy about themselves and about their future, and that's what you have to have in your head. You're giving them an opportunity to feel good about themselves. And that's like magic. And any of you who do or someday in the future need to do fundraising, remember Milton Gordon. It's great advice. And with that, I just want to give you the opportunity. Now or in the future, preferably now, that will make you feel great about yourselves. I'm told there are little envelopes, I'm not sure this is true, on the tables. If you'd like to really have a good evening, you should fill them out and hand them out to staff on the way out with a pledge. If you don't do that, you won't be allowed to leave, but that's all right. Thank you all very much for being here. We have a great convention planned. We reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m. in this room for a session on the Constitution. It has a terrific group of panelists. I could say that because I'm one of them. And have a terrific evening. Thank you very much.